My name is Kelly O'Brien, and I lead both the Alliance for Regional Development and the Chicago Central Area Committee. If this is your first time joining us, the Alliance is a regional platform that was created in 2012, bringing together decision makers from the Milwaukee, Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana corridor. The world's leading think tank on economic development published a 300-page roadmap for how to grow the regional economy. And as a result of this publication, leaders from the 3 states came together and created the Alliance for Regional Development. I am thrilled that Clarence, our guest speaker today, is part of the leadership of the Alliance. The Alliance's sister organization was created in 1956, so it has decades of experience, and it is called the Chicago Central Area Committee, better known as the CCAC. And the CCAC and its members have been a part of really shaping Chicago to be the global destination that it is today. So it is really an honor from my perspective to be able to lead both groups and work with such amazing stakeholders. So today we have the privilege of really learning about local economic development and specifically Michigan City. And as I mentioned, our speaker is a part of the Alliance for Regional Development Leadership and also leads the Michigan City Economic Development Corporation. Clarence is really a visionary leader, and he is well known within his community, but really throughout the economic development profession. Clarence has a diverse background that includes achievements in performance management, affordable housing, strategic planning, redevelopment, business recruitment, project financing, building community partnerships, building jobs, finding financing. I mean, he is really what we would consider a jack of all trades. In his current role as the leader of the Economic Development Corporation of Michigan City, he is spearheading the revitalization of the downtown through retail and art-related initiatives. And I'm really looking forward to talking about that. He has been involved in numerous multi-million-dollar projects, including new hospital and the double track, Northwest Indiana. And he has overseen well over $1 billion in public and private investments in Michigan City over 7 years. I mean, that is eye-popping numbers and really something to be so proud of. Clarence's experience is not only limited to Indiana, although he's worked in a few communities. He has worked in North Carolina and in Florida, as well as the private sector. He is a native of Belize, so we are really lucky that you left that beautiful weather for the Midwest, and loves to travel, art, music, and history, golf, and fishing. So with that, Clarence, is there anything about your background that I failed to share that you would like the audience to be aware of?
Oh, wow, that's quite a mouthful. But thank you for the introduction. It's been a great experience, great journey. Lots of great people along the way who've been very helpful in my path. And so I try to do the same by helping other people. So, but awesome experience and great to be here.
Well, we are thrilled to have you here. So for the audience members that are not familiar with what economic development really means, let's start by kind of explaining, before COVID, what does an economic development professional do, and how did you choose this as your profession?
Well, I mean, I usually tell people we're here to create jobs and capital investment, create wealth. And that's really a very short summary because end of the day, you have to be a jack of all trades and master of none, or master a few, because your days are always different. You're trying to recruit business, help build business startups, work with business expansion, and then the other day you're doing real estate development. You're talking about planning and permits, and then the next day you're working with workforce development and trying to get people trained, trying to look at for the job market and look at the future job openings, and working with the schools and universities to look at the future jobs of the future. And then the next day, you're looking at investment trends across the country, across the world, and how that affects your community. So it's a job that never ends in terms of you learning new tricks to the trade and bringing new things to the community, and always being flexible and adaptive to the market environment. So,
Well said. Well said. And I know, personally, I got involved in economic development probably just shy of 20 years ago now. And it was by happenstance, I was involved with the city council in a community outside of Chicago and asked to lead the economic development committee. I had no idea what that meant. And as I got into it, I really enjoyed understanding what kind of businesses do the residents want to have in our community? What do the businesses need to be successful? How do we take those empty storefronts and find viable businesses to make our community their home? And then when I was invited to work at the US Department of Commerce doing economic development work, I got to see that on a federal level and communities from coast to coast. But I will admit, I still have a lot of family and friends who say, I don't understand what you do. And, as you just mentioned, there is hardly ever 2 days that are the same. And it's a really exciting profession. So for those of you that are thinking about making a switch, economic development is a great way to make a living.
it's a great field to be in because, I mean, at the end of the day, you're influencing policy, you're implementing programs, and work with projects that change people's lives. And I was, for me, that's probably the most rewarding part of the field is that you're affecting people's lives every day, and by helping create wealth through number one, a job. But for those who want to be investors, we also find them ideas and financing to help them do that. So to me, that's probably the most rewarding part of my career is helping people to succeed.
Well, I know you personally, and I know that you mean that, and I know that that drives the decisions that you make, which is why it's an honor to be able to work with you. So Clarence, in preparation for today's webinar, when I was telling people that I would say, have you ever shopped at the Michigan City outlets? And they said, of course. And I said, well, you're going to want to tune in today. So let's start by talking about the outlets. Are they open?
Yes, they're fully open, 100%. They're creating, they're following all the safety protocols and guidelines in terms of entering the stores and all that, but all shops are open. And so every day from 10 to 7 p.m., 10 a.m. to 7 p.m., they're open. So please come on down to Michigan City. We have about 30 restaurants downtown, ethnic restaurants, and they're also open mainly in the evenings. Again, they have spacing requirements. But yes, we are following all the social safety guidelines, and we're trying to make things work like everybody else across the country. Our numbers went up after July 4th weekend, but they've flattened out. And so we think we're doing a good job of managing it across the community here.
Well, it's great to hear that they're open. And that was actually one of the questions that I have is, what are you hearing from the owners? And, in terms of this time last summer, are they seeing a real decline in people out shopping, or what is the experience kind of on the ground?
Yeah, I'd say most of the business owners, the one they had a late start because by state guidelines we were closed, and then we opened at 25%, 50, and then 75, and now so for the most part, most restaurants are at 75%. The stores are at 100, but of course maintaining the safety protocols, and so they're still having customers, but not to the same extent as last year. So I'd say most people have not met their numbers because of a late start, but also not being able to have free-flowing traffic like they're used to. So I would say most people are probably at least between 50 to 75% down from last year.
It's tough. I do want to remind the audience that you are welcome to submit questions through the Q&A button, and I will do my job to get an answer from Clarence. So Clarence, a lot have changed in the last few months, and tell me about how economic development has changed in terms of how you're responding to businesses that maybe have shuttered or are really struggling.
For us, once the pandemic was announced in March, we realized quickly that the world had changed, and we weren't quite sure what that meant for everybody. But we have a very robust business retention expansion program. And so we reach into the business community right away and start asking questions, making phone calls. And both the EDC got with the Michigan City Chamber of Commerce, and we start meeting once every 2 weeks via Zoom with all the senior business leaders, the mayor and 2 or 3 city council, all of the nonprofits, and just to update what's going on. How do we make sure we're coordinating? Because of course that's when we start having the layoffs and people being put on pretty much couldn't work. And so we were trying to figure out, number one, how do we respect the guidelines but also keep the economy going? And so having the senior leadership across the community, both nonprofit, for-profit, local government, speak to each other was helpful. Share information, making sure we're sharing resources, and people who were hurting, who needed help, we know where to direct those efforts. We kept that every 2 weeks for the last probably 3.5 to 4 months. And then when things kind of flattened out, the numbers went down, we're still meeting once a month via Zoom, again, still share information. So we've got the hospital talking about the numbers, the protocols and things which we're doing. We've got the manufacturers talking about how they kept going through COVID in terms of changing shifts, adding spacing between the shifts, the social distancing within the plants, the thermal checking. So, but sharing information was helpful because that allowed the manufacturing community to actually keep going through the whole COVID process. And so they didn't have as much impact during the process. Now they're having more impacts because of the whole supply distribution that's been affected. What suffered immediately, of course, was the casino. We have a blue chip casino here that's was over 1,200 people. They had to shut down for 3 months. And so that really affected revenues about the city and just having a place to go. And of course, a lot of hotels were also closed. And so that affected the tourism functions across the community. And of course, the restaurants were closed. So we saw those immediate effects with the restaurants laying off people. And then, of course, when we incrementally open back up, the issue has become finding people to go back to work. And again, the restaurants are most affected, so are the hotels. The manufacturers are just getting to what I call a slowdown because of not being able to get the raw materials on time, but also trying to get their stuff shipped out to their customers, who are now trying to put a pause on getting the supplies because of them not either having met their supply guidelines and also not having employees. So so we are getting the late effects from the manufacturer's standpoint, but we were affected via retail and hospitality throughout the whole process. It's getting back to a point where I think the casino just reopened about 3 weeks ago. They laid off over half their workforce. So that was again immediate effect to the community, not having those jobs. And then of course the restaurants being open 75%, they haven't had to hire at a fully functioning rate because they're doing a lot of curbside the past month or so, and some of them are just reopened in the last 2 weeks. So we're seeing those effects, and then of course our unemployment rate was up to 16%, which was before pre-COVID was 4%. We jumped up to 16, so quadrupled. We're now down to 10. So we have a ways to go. But the Chamber of Commerce and the EDC work hand in hand for over the last 4 months to, number one, coordinate resources. We funded a joint website where they gave all the federal guidelines for updates, the state updates, and the local updates. And so a business can go on there and see all the federal, state, Indiana manufacturing guidelines, local guidelines, and also tourism. If you need help in terms of finding a food pantry, but we want to be a resource to the community, and so we were able to keep that going the last 4 months in terms of making sure there was a central location for information distribution from the chamber and the EDC, and we try to track, real valid sources of data via the federal government, state government, and the other agencies out there who are very helpful.
We have a question from the audience, and it reads, imagine you were an Indiana legislator. What would you want changed in the state to help economic development?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, for me, that'd be having more tools to fund infrastructure. Indiana, like many Midwest states, has a lot of old, deteriorating infrastructure. And sometimes, we do offer great incentives, but they don't cover the cost of either improving or adding new infrastructure. Currently, I'm working on a business park plan for the city, the southeast side of the city. We annexed over 40 acres last year. And so I get to build a new business park. But having dollars to put water and sewer lines in place would be very, very helpful. And so the city is trying to figure out how to do that. So I think having those tools to build infrastructure to promote both commercial and industrial development is key for us to move forward.
Well, speaking of infrastructure, can you update us on the double tracking?
That project is going forward full force. The projected date for completion is 2024. When the train leaves the station. And so we had an update from NICTE about a month ago, and the train stations across the region are at I think 60% design, and so we're hoping to have construction beginning next year. For Michigan City, it's been a game changer, and I hate to use that word because it's been overused, but we are projected to have over 800 units of multifamily 10 years after double track on our new train station. Well, if fingers are crossed because we're currently having a pipeline over 500 units that will probably happen when the train leaves the station in 2024. So we're ahead of the projections, and when it comes to multifamily projects, i.e., apartments, condos, and such projects within our downtown footprint. So for us, the double track is going to, instead of an hour and a half or 45 minutes to Chicago downtown to Millennium Station, is going to be 60 minutes. So we are very excited about being able to live in Indiana and work in Chicago.
In addition to the double track, what else are big changes to the community, aka power plant next to the outlet malls? A question from
yes, NIPSCO, NiSource, NIPSCO is looking to, I guess, decommission the power plant on the waterfront, and so that's 10 years out, of course, and then probably another 5 years of environmental cleanup. We are excited about that. That's going to change our waterfront. That's about 50 acres of land on the lake that will be put out for development in the future. And so we envision a whole new downtown, a modern downtown, in terms of having condos, offices, and such modern amenities in the future to be on the water. So it's going to be, for us, it will just definitely change what our downtown will look like in that part of the world. Of course, having the National Dunes Park beside that is for us is major, because that's already last year when it was announced, we had a number of increase in tourism, and so we were hoping to continue that trend this year. Unfortunately, because of COVID-19, that has slowed that down. But having a national park right on the edge of your city is inviting a lot of new people to come and visit our community, and we're seeing possible new hotel projects because of that, because people come that want to stay. So we see new hotel projects there coming there in the next 12 months.
Well, that actually is right on point for our next question that was submitted by an audience member. And please remember, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, so please submit your questions. This question, it reads, how are the Washington Park Beach and the adjacent Indiana Dunes National Park beaches doing this year? Last year was a record for the national park. Will they top it this year?
Fortunately not, but I was hoping we would, because yes, it was last year. Due to COVID, unfortunately, people have put off traveling, and that has decreased our numbers. So I don't think we'll top it off this year. But keep my fingers crossed. This pandemic goes away, and we'll look to top it next year. We've had to close Washington Park for a few weeks, and it's closed again for another 7 days because of this being unable to manage the crowd the last few weeks. And so the city had to use a lot of fire and police resources to do that. We had people would come and stay in the water and refuse to come out of the water, and so it got unmanageable. So the city has decided shut it down until we can get some of the traffic to a manageable standpoint. But we foresee next year being twice as much as last year because there is a pent-up demand for travel to the national park, pent-up demand for the beach. This year we didn't have the soccer tournaments, the volleyball tournaments, all the things that make our beaches great had to be put off. Our big Grand Prix boat race, 120,000 people every year in Michigan City, and the first weekend in August this year had to be canceled for the first time in 10 years. And last year there was 120,000 people, all the hotels booked within 30 miles. We had 11 teams from across the world, Dubai, the UK, Trinidad, other countries come to Michigan City for that boat race. And it's a 3-day event. So again, lots of revenue loss this year in the tourism arena. And so we're definitely hoping to come out bigger and better next year.
So is that known as the Great Lakes Grand Prix?
Yes. And this is our what have been our 10th year, and we attract a lot of people to Michigan City. It's a 3-day event. We have the Taste of Michigan City. We have various sizes of boats racing, and the city really puts its best foot forward for those 3 days. Everybody is here, locals, out of towners, and it's a great place to hang out that weekend.
And I can say, as somebody who has attended, it really is. It's a wonderful weekend, and I certainly think that we should hope that we'll be back there next year. The next question reads, have you noticed that Michigan, or do you have a sense of whether or not Michigan City housing values have been rising?
Yes, we've seen a 4.9% increase in average housing prices over the past 3 years, and that will continue. So we know there's a pent-up demand for people looking to be in Indiana, and also we are hoping they want to move to Michigan City. We have a great waterfront, great beaches, great zoo, train station, casino, winery, and microbreweries, and the great arts district downtown. And so the EDC has been locating properties across the city between 5 to 50 acres. And so we are hoping to be working with single-family developers here in the near future to start building homes in the middle market range for Michigan City, because we see we don't have a supply of homes between 200 to 300,000. When they come to the market within 3 or 4 days, there's 5 or 6 offers. I mean, they go very quickly. So we see a demand for housing within that range. And so we're trying to find ways to make that happen here within the next 24 months.
Oh, that's very exciting.
Yes, for us, that's a big change. Our school district has gotten much better, winning a number of awards. We have the only compressed air academy in the country. We've got 12 air compressor companies here in Michigan City. Atlas Copco, Hitachi, are two of the global ones. And so we have an air compressor cluster here in Michigan City. We ship a lot of air compressors overseas, Africa, the Middle East. So wherever there's a pump needed, it probably came from Michigan City. So whether it's oil, gas, water, pneumatics. I mean, you look on the interstate in New York City, New York, you see a Solaire air compressor made in Michigan City. Makes you very proud when you're traveling and see that. But so we know there's over 2,000 jobs tied to that industry in Michigan City. And so one of the things we have done is we work with the schools and the manufacturers to begin a school. So you can leave high school with 5 certifications, 3 of which are the general manufacturing certifications, national certifications, and then 2 geared towards air compressor industry. And so you can leave high school and go straight to a job and make 50 grand a year out of high school. And so the whole idea is to build a workforce pipeline that we will keep these companies here, grow for a long, long time. We are number 1 in the Midwest when it comes to air compressors, and number 11 in the country.
Really? That's
number 1 in Indiana. So we want to keep that moving forward, and we want to grow these local companies in the air compressor industry.
excellent, excellent. Clarence, can you talk a little bit about art space?
Art space in terms of?
I understand that you're really involved in bringing art to the downtown area.
Yes, we, well, I mean, Michigan City has always been an artsy location, and so we wanted to tap into a vein that was a little different from the normal economic development strategy. And just looking across the country, I've seen where areas like North Carolina and state of New York and Northeast have done some really creative things with art. And so it took us three tries to get funded through tax credits, but we were able to redevelop an old building to the tune of $13 million, and we're able to attract Art Space out of Minnesota, a national arts incubator, to put a location in Michigan City. And so today we have 45 artists living downtown, and if you can sing, draw, tap dance, fly a drone, and take pictures, you're an artist. And so they pay low market rate, low rate rent to live in our arts district, and that provides us an anchor to have more artists and people with creative minds live and work in our downtown. And so 2015, we've had a number of new arts type related studios. We've had people like architects move because of the art district. We have got a number of art shows and a thriving artist community in Michigan City. And so we'll be able to attract people who are doing sculptures and those type of things. And so we're trying to go towards a more industrial related type arts to keep that Midwest feeling. And so we're looking for more sculptures and people who want to build stuff in our community. We are also part of a national arts program where every 2 years we change sculptures across our downtown. So every 2 years you'll see different sculptures at our corners of our downtown because we change them every 2 years out. And so you can always come and take pictures or Instagram with our sculptures in the downtown. And we find that to be very one of our features for people who are new to the downtown. When they travel, they all point out all the different arts they see across the city. And we want to keep that program moving forward because we feel it's a very as a new feature to our downtown, and having the artists living there has been very helpful with all the art designs and art shows. And we also have made our zoning codes and planning codes whereby, when you put up signs, it's got to be different. We don't permit neon and those type of things. It's got to be a real artsy, folksy type look. Because we want to keep that small town feel. And so even though we're growing, we want to keep that small town feel.
Turning a little bit to the environment, one of the questions that was submitted reads, what have rising Lake Michigan levels meant to Michigan City?
Well, it's not been very good for not only Michigan City, but all of Northwest Indiana. We've had a number of significant homes and other properties that have been impacted by the rising water. Horrible news where we see slides, the shore sliding into the water, and folks having to build seawalls, whether through the insurance or at their own cost. And of course, we had a couple of times where Washington Park Beach was flooded earlier this year. So yes, the rising waters have affected both tourism, but also folks' land values negatively who live right on the water. And so, there's been a number of local legislators and elected officials who have really petitioned the state to help us out with calling a state disaster. We haven't gotten that yet, but we're still working on to make that happen. It could be nice to have some state or federal funds to help those affected homeowners moving forward.
Well, it's hard to believe, but our 30 minutes is up, and there are several questions that we were not able to get to. So I can send those to you, and hopefully maybe you can reach out and answer those. So in our closing last few seconds, I guess my takeaway is Michigan City is open for business, and it's a place that we should shop, and anything that you would like to leave in terms of an impression for our audience members.
We're excited about the growth that's happening in Michigan City and the future of Michigan City. We have a very positive future, and we are open to hearing from people with new ideas of who want to invest or who want to live here. And it's an exciting time for a small town, and we want to grow as part of the Chicagoland region. We are attracting international investors through Select Chicago. We're attracting regional investors out of Chicagoland and Northwest Indiana. And so we just want to be a place where you can visit, invest, play, and shop.
Well, I know with you at the helm that all of that is a reality and is only going to get better. So, Clarence, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your leadership with the Alliance for Regional Development. To our audience members, thank you for choosing to spend your time with us. I know that you have a lot of choices, and I feel honored that you take the time and you support the organizations that I lead. Please watch your email for our future programming. We will begin back in earnest in September. You may have noticed in the PowerPoint that was played before our discussion started today that we have a members only program on September 8th, and then we're going to be talking about workforce development on the 15th. So put those on your calendar. I hope to see you soon. Stay well, stay safe, and thank you for joining us today. Bye, everybody. Bye, Clarence. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you
Appreciate it.
soon.
Take care.
Bye-bye.